Good morning and welcome to this webinar today from Easy Software, 5 ways to deliver great contract management. My name is George Hadaway. I'm the ECM and contract management specialist here at Easy Software, and I'm delighted to be able to present to you today, so many thanks for joining. Today we're focusing on contract management and how manual contract management processes cost our organizations money. We're going to explore the pitfalls of manual contract management and examine the benefits a dedicated contract lifecycle management software can bring, while finishing with some short demos of key functionality which will show us how the solution can bring us business benefit. The session should be about 25 to 30 minutes long. Please note that the session is being recorded to be able to share with any registrants that couldn't make it today. So for those of you who aren't familiar with Easy Software, just a very brief overview as to who we are. We are a document management and enterprise content management software company. Been around since 1990, a global organization in a number of countries, prevalent with solutions in 54 countries around the world, over 12,500 installations, a turnover of just over 40 million euros, and we go to market via our network of 100 partners throughout the globe. Today, specifically, we're going to be talking about our contract management solutions. That is only one area of the solutions that we have. We have a number of solutions for different business areas, such as invoice processing, HR, personnel, file management, and we've just recently released a product for GDPR compliance, so something that's obviously a hot topic at the minute, so please keep your eyes out for that. And here's a selection of the organisations we work with here in the UK. We're not sector specific by any means. We usually find more often than not our solutions are departmentally led, be that the finance department, contracts, legal, whatever it may be. Usually these departments have similar challenges throughout the organisation, no matter what the sector. Okay, so what is contract lifecycle management? Well, the definition is the process of creating, negotiating, storing and managing legally binding contracts. A recent study done by the IACCM, the International Association of Commercial and Contract Management, they're a professional industry body with over 30,000 contract management professionals from some of the largest organizations in the world. And they discovered through their research that up to 9% of a company's revenue can be lost due to just poor contract management. There is an argument to be made for the contract to be the most important document in a company. Nothing gets bought or sold before one's signed. However, the vast majority of businesses are still not utilizing contract management software tools. Contracts have often been seen as documents that once signed can be stored away, forgotten about, only to be retrieved and referred to should the worst happen and legal action required. The reality couldn't be further from the truth, however. In each contract, there's a litany of terms, deadlines, clauses that all need to be monitored and actioned on periodically. Organizations are losing money by not taking advantage of particular terms. Costs are incurred by auto-renewing contracts being missed and potential new revenues being lost in sales contracts not being proactively managed. So contract management, it affects every department within an organization. Every department have contracts for which it is responsible, be them buy contracts, sell contracts, or legal contracts. And studies have shown that approximately 80% of companies still have no specific contract management system, or indeed they use a mixture of other tools they already own to manage, such as Excel spreadsheets. This means there's no centralized, structured way to file all the contractual information and no way to carry out comprehensive analysis on the information we own. And as mentioned, a variety of different tools are used to job. So Excel spreadsheets to track the contracts themselves, communication via email with our internal stakeholders and external contractual partners. This means there is no auditing, no traceability of any changes or where the contracts are in their life cycle. Deadlines managed through Outlook calendars. Again, unless somebody is actively putting them into their calendars, it means we're not being proactive enough and deadlines can possibly be missed. Adhering to legal requirements or fulfilling internal compliance measures is becoming more and more difficult. Adhering to rules for balance sheet accounting and risk management as well is creating ever greater challenges for companies. And a lack of transparency regarding the contractual content or lack of assessment options are some of the main arguments for introducing a contract management system. Often it can be impossible to answer questions such as contract volume per supplier, upcoming termination deadlines, cost planning from contractual contents, or even where the actual document in question is located, or such answers require a lot of manual work to find. A conversation we have with a lot of organizations is the real risk of losing the contractual documents themselves and just getting lost as people leave the organization. If somebody is specifically tasked with managing a certain number of contracts, they have their own filing system, they leave the organization, and ultimately the organization loses the visibility of these contracts, often meaning that they might auto-renew if these are purchase contracts, meaning the company is potentially spending money on something it doesn't need anymore, or if it's a sales contract, perhaps we're missing out on potential new revenue by letting these expire and not being proactive in the renewal. So if your company doesn't utilize a centralized contract management system, you are ultimately facing risk in 4 key areas. So the first is from a compliance point of view. So any publicly traded company or any that operate in a regulated environment must ensure that they comply with all legislation and regulation around the disclosure of corporate information. If a regulator, auditor, customer or partner requested a copy of a contract along with evidence of the entire contractual process, could you or your business adhere and in good time? And with GDPR just around the corner, does this affect any personal or employee-based contracts or information that might be requested? Secondly, transparency. A key advantage of contract lifecycle management systems is the ability to manage and review the entire contracting process from creation all the way through to signature, and then the ongoing management of the documents and contracts post-signature. Staff can get insight into the costs or earnings of contracts, who's dealing with them internally, view all the supporting documentation and correspondence, and with this information make better business decisions. Also, hidden within the detail of contracts are a litany of terms and conditions which can expose your business to unnecessary risk. Being able to flag these clauses is key to any solution. Thirdly, quality. By utilizing a contract lifecycle management system, we can be strict in what specific information is mandatory and must be captured and stored. This provides our staff with all the information they need in one area to make better business decisions and facilitate us in the management of customers and suppliers. Utilizing built-in workflow tools, we can adhere to defined business processes and control the flow of information through the business. The third is quality. So by utilizing a contract lifecycle management solution, we can really track what information needs to be captured and stored and have a better quality of the information from top to bottom. And finally, costs. Ultimately, businesses are under more and more pressure to reduce bottom line costs and increase their revenues. A contract lifecycle management solutions allows us to save costs in the creation and negotiation of contracts and increase revenue by allowing us to be more proactive in the renewal of sales side contracts. So what are some of the tangible benefits we can really see from deploying an electronic contract management system? Well, a study by PricewaterhouseCoopers, they mentioned that corporate expenditures can be reduced by up to 2% just by introducing a contract management system. So proactive management of contract renewals enable your field sales force or customer service representatives to proactively address customer inquiries and contractual issues, thereby improving satisfaction and reducing cancellations. When managed proactively, a sales force also has the opportunity to make add-on sales to the contract. Depending on your business, this could be incidental increments to major sales opportunities. And then a similar difference between being reactive and proactive when it comes to contract management applies to supply contracts, except the cost of reactive management is not missed revenue, but unnecessary spending. This sort of spending can drive up overall costs and has a direct effect on the bottom line of any company. The inadvertent renewal of vendor contracts can be particularly costly when automatic renewal is layered in, as it is in most contracts. So as mentioned before, we can increase our top line income by up to 2%. We're going to improve the transparency regarding all the contractual information, all the content around a contract with additional documents, the automatic reminder functions, and then we can take advantage of any negotiated conditions. As we mentioned earlier, compliance is hugely important to making sure that we comply and adhere to all legal regulations around storage of information. And also, having everything electronically means we can work better and smarter and access this information via our mobile devices. So when we're on the move and out of the office, indeed, these days business never stops. So again, looking at the tangible benefits we should really see. Well, first of all, we should be able to increase our revenue. So better management of our contract milestones, we can exploit discounts and bonus revenues within a contract, etc. Increasing renewal revenue by up to 30% of contracts. So now, by better management of a contract expiry dates and automatic reminders, we can be proactive and not miss renewals. And also, it now allows us to make sure we comply 100% of the time by electronically archiving our contracts and making them findable and retrievable and retained for the required timeframes. And on the savings side, we can reduce our operating processing costs by up to 10 to 30%. By automating up to 80% of the manual work associated with creating and managing contracts, we can make a huge savings here. The contract negotiation cycle we can bring down by 50%. So now, utilizing the electronic workflow in the system, we can set deadlines and escalate processes. All changes and suggestions are made in one place. Version control reduces the number of copies, and it allows us to have that one version of the truth. Finally, we can reduce any erroneous payments through finance by up to 90%. Actually, 3% of all finance payments are erroneous. So if finance had the accurate information from the contract and had access to this data, then they would be able to stop making these incorrect payments. So, some other considerations. We mentioned it earlier. GDPR, the General Data Protection Regulation Act, is around the corner from May next year. I'm sure you all know the headlines. It's European-wide. Fines are enormous, from up to 4% of annual global turnover or 20 million euros, whichever's higher, if we cannot provide people with their personal data when requested. So how does this relate to contract management? Well, if you are using the system to store any personal information related to contracts, maybe staff information, staff contracts, then it is something you do need to consider and make sure you have all your information centralized so you can search, find it if called on to do so. And then a little bit left field, but there's this year there was a new duty by HMRC released on large companies to report on their payment practices and policies. So this is more something for finance to consider. If a company has 2 out of the 3 aspects, so a 36 million turnover, an 18 million balance sheet, or 250 employees, so any 2 out of those 3, then they have to comply to this and provide regular reports on how quick they pay their suppliers. So, like I say, it is obviously something for finance more than sales, legal, or whoever it may be. But the question is, do finance have access to the supplier contracts to be able to see the payment terms? It might be the case that if a different department is dealing with the supplier contracts and finance don't have access because they're not in a centralized system, then how can they accurately report what their payment terms or if they're meeting those terms without this visibility? So something to consider. So let's just talk a little bit about the solution itself. So with Easy Contract Management, we can securely and effectively manage the contracts across their entire life cycles. And just to break it down very simply into 4 key functions. So contract data. So we store all the relevant contractual information, we capture it in a structured way, and this data includes framework parameters of the contract, termination regulations, any responsible parties or monetary information related to the contract. We can also link any related contracts together for easy access and comparison. And then we have this idea of a contract file. So think of it like a paper file or a box file, but electronic. So we have all documents and associated data structured, sorted into tabs, filed in the master agreement, but like I say, very similar to a paper folder. We now can digitize our processes, so deadlines for contract termination and taking advantage of options for early payment or early settlement are monitored by the system, and the responsible user automatically receives an email notification when any deadlines are upcoming. We can also build customized workflows into the system to send documents and contracts around for internal approval and collaboration. And then reporting, we have a variety of options in the system to analyze what contracts we have in the system, where they are, what's the status, and maybe what are they costing or earning. And all this information can be easily, quickly exported into Excel spreadsheets if you so wish by a click of a button. Easy Contract is designed genuinely as an out-of-the-box solution product. So it means we have a fixed implementation. It's a very, very short implementation time where we can install and train, and then you have all the functionality required for contract lifecycle management out of the box. It's as relevant for purchasing contracts as it is for sales contracts, as it is for legal contracts. It can be used amongst one or any of these applications, and of course contracts can be split, permissions can be handed out, so only certain areas of the business can see the information that they're allowed to see. So we can create contracts within the system. We can send around and approve via the electronic workflow. We can store templates, so if you have contracts or templates that you use internally, we can generate these from the system and auto-populate them from data already input into the fields. We can capture paper-based contracts or already electronic contracts and easily capture them and put them into the system. We have a variety of deadline monitoring options. So we're not just monitoring the ultimate expiry of the contract, but you can create any number of deadlines and reminders to make sure that people are notified early of any deadlines coming up. Full search and powerful search functionality means you can find information on a very granular level and make sure you get to that contract very quickly and easily. And of course, the reporting functionality to make sure we can see what information we have in the system. So let's have a look. I've got a few short pre-recorded demo videos here. They're really just to give a very basic idea of the interface and some of the key basic functions. So please look at this as really just a short introduction. If you wish to have a more in-depth demo, then please contact us after the session. We're always more than happy to come in to see you or create an online web demo where we can look at everything in much more detail. So the first thing we're going to look at is just how simply we can create a contract within the system. First thing to mention is Easy Contract is a web-based application. There's no installation of any software needed on your PCs. It'll work with any of the major browsers and will link with your Active Directory, so you don't even need to log in with your username and password if you don't wish. Okay, having a technical issue there, so excuse me. So I'm going to jump out, jump into here. Okay, so we will do a live demo instead. So logging into the system, and the first thing I'm presented with is my own personalized dashboard as a user. So the users can create these and decide what they want to see on the dashboard, whatever information is most relevant to them. So we have some basic charts here to show us how many certain contracts we have in the system, maybe where the contracts are broken down by which employees, which departments they're with, what have I got coming up within the next week. And then here within my inbox, I've got anything that I have to action. So this is anything, maybe any contracts that are coming up for renewal, maybe something's been sent to me via the workflow that I have to approve, or perhaps I have some other deadline that I need to action. And on the left here we have our navigation, and we can start pulling down these folders and start filtering information. So if I click on all contracts, then that'll just load up every contract in my system. If I choose a particular contract, everything opens up to the right, so really takes advantage of the wide screens we all have on our desks now. So it means I can look at the contractual information on the right and still have my hit list on the left should I wish to compare or open something else. All this is based on responsive design technology, so it'll adapt to any device you view it on. So if it's a phone or an iPad, it'll intelligently adapt. And again, the user can choose how large they want these tiles to be, and everything can be sort of quickly closed to make more space, or opened if they so wish. So filtering down further by contract types, then we can obviously filter further and see only the contracts we wish to see. Again, we can hand out permissions based on this information, so only the people in the organisation who are allowed to see these contract types can see them. And then we have a powerful search, as I mentioned. So if I go to the top and I just start typing, we can get to the information we want. We have suggested search technology, so any information I have in the system as I start typing, a bit like Google these days, it'll give me suggestions as to information that exists in the system. So doing a search, I can see for Golf, I've got two possible entries for this. I've got a car lease contract for a Volkswagen Golf and a car insurance policy for that Volkswagen Golf. So clicking in, and we can see the contract file itself. So let's have a look at some of the information we're capturing. So we're capturing what contracting entity this contract applies to. So if you have a number of different legal entities or different departments, then it means we can associate the contract only with those departments or entities. And again, it's another way of handing out permissions to make sure only those parts of the business see these contracts. We can see a link to our contractual partner. We keep a database of your contractual partners within the system. So this allows you to, again, have one area for administration to see all your contractual partners and then see what contracts you have alongside those contractual partners at any one point. If you have associated frameworks agreement with the contract, then we can link directly to those frameworks from here as well and see the framework from the associated contracts. We have the duration field, so we can see when the contract was signed, when it started, when does it expire, how long is it, and then we have any termination possibilities at the end. So if it's been agreed that a termination is possible, or if a termination is progressed, then it's all again tracked within here. And down the bottom here, we have a few of our deadlines and our reminders that we've set up. So for this, I mean, it's a car lease contract, but we see the person has put in some deadlines to just remind them very simply that the tyres on the car need changing, or perhaps the fuel card is expiring on a certain date. So again, we can be notified instead of these things being forgotten. And on the right, a bit like our folder, we have this tab structure. So we can create any number of tabs and specific fields. So while you may have a number of standard fields, specific contracts might have their own fields that you want to create and capture within the system. So here, for this example, this is a car lease. I've got some specific fields created for a car lease. So what's the car? What's the license plate? What's the fuel card? What's the insurance information? And actually, talking about linking contracts, we can link any contracts together via a common field. So in this example, I have in another repository a insurance contract for this car. And because the two are linked, I can click on this button and it'll take me straight to this insurance policy for that car very quickly and easily. So let's go back very quickly to our car lease contract and look at some of the other features and functions. Any comments? So people want to share information around the contract can be stored in here, so different staff can see a build-up of the conversation about this contract. These are the contractual documents themselves. So here we have an image of the car. If I want to add something else, perhaps a signed contract document, it's very, very simple. I'm just going to minimize that. And we can take any document, drag it in, and that is now saved alongside that contract. So once the contract is signed, it can be dragged in, saved, as simple as that. Remarks, this is where we track any correspondence around this contract. So if I email out of the system to my contractual supplier, it'll store it in here. So anyone who has access to this can come in, see the information, see the email, who it was sent to, time and date, any attachments that were sent, very, very simply. It's also used as a way, in a CRM-esque sort of way. So should you wish to capture any notes, call in, it can be stored in here. And again, the responsible person, if they're away, will get a notification. They can come in here, see the partner called in, and respond and do what they need to do. Any payments or earnings for the contract, financial information can be tracked in here. So we can see maybe what, in this instance, what my car lease costs are. So I have a lease payment, it's monthly. Monthly payment of £400. So far it's cost me £14,400. It's a monthly outgoing charge. And here is the cost for the replacement tyres. So now we can see really in depth exactly what these contracts are costing us in one area. And then we can report on that as well. So here we can see all the information about what that contract is costing us or earning us, and in a quickly generated report from clicking a button. And then status. Here, this allows us to have that full sort of compliance and auditability. We can see everything that's happened in this contract. Any time a field was changed, something was edited, any time a document was added, it's all date, time stamped, username stamped, and we can see everything that's happened. And down here we can see the actual workflow. So if the document or the contract has been sent around the organization by the inbuilt workflow, then we can track where it is, who it's with, and what's been done. If I just go to a different type of contract and I go to create a new contract within the system, I'm just going to create a new contract here. If I can get my spelling right. So very simply, I'm just going to create a new contract within the system. Another thing I mentioned is you can create contract templates and store them within the system. So if I fill in some information here into my fields for a new contract, I can generate a template, choose which template from the system I want to use. And now this will create a document within my system from that template. And from here, we can add the other information we need. Perhaps we want to send this around the organization via the inbuilt workflow for collaboration to work on. And also, any of the fields that we fill in, we can auto-populate certain areas of the contract from these fields. So if we want to take the contract start date or expiry fields and input these into certain areas of the contract, it can do it automatically as we generate it. Additionally, everything's version controlled. So here you see I have just my version 1. If I was to make a change to this document, it would automatically make a new version, and then this would be tracked, and I can see what the changes were, who made those changes, and have that sort of full visibility and transparency of everything that happened to that contract. Finally, a couple more things just to quickly touch on. The system has an inbuilt reminder calendar, so we can see via a traffic light function what we've got coming up, what's open and doesn't need to be actioned yet, or if anything has been forgotten about and been lost, then it'll turn red and become overdue. And then these will be escalated as per your escalation procedures that you set up in the system. One more thing to touch on quickly, administration. We do allow the user or any power users to have this administration function. So moving on with the system, you can be self-sufficient in the way you manage your easy contract system. So if you wish to create new contract types, you have the ability to do it directly from the web client itself. If you want to manage your users, it's very easy to create new users in here. We have a function called user exchange. So if you have Billy here and he leaves the organization, then we can say, well, Billy had a number of contracts associated with him before. So whereas before these contracts might be lost or forgotten about because they're on his PC, now we can say, well, actually every contract that was related to Billy now transfer access to me, and we won't delete him just now, we'll deactivate him because he may come back. So it really gives you, the user, the power to administer the system and not having to come to us or go to IT every time you want something changed. Okay, so that was a very quick overview, just to give you an idea of the interface and some of the sort of key basic functions. We are running out of time, so just to finish off, a couple of other things to touch on. It is available as an app as well, so obviously you can access it through your mobile devices, but there is an app you can download and link to use on your mobile devices if you so wish. We also have a number of partners that we offer complementary products alongside Easy Contract. So we partner with eSign Live for electronic signature functionality to link directly with Easy Contract. And Brother Scanners, we include Brother Scanner with all Easy Contract purchases, so you can scan and easily digitize those contracts that you still have via paper or have via wet signature. So to summarize, what are my 5 ways, which was obviously the original topic of the webinar today, to great contract management? Well, 1, having a centralized repository, making sure everything is easy to access in one area, one version of the truth, and everyone can access the information as and when needed. Automate deadline management. Make sure you don't lose money by letting contracts auto-renew or miss sales opportunities by forgetting to renew customer contracts. Utilize workflow. So make sure we can now audit and track where contracts are within the organization when they're being negotiated or being created. Integrate templates into the system. Instead of having to replicate and do the same work over and over again, by utilizing the templates inbuilt into the system, we can make that manual repeating work a thing of the past. And utilize reporting so we can see where we are, what information do we have, what do we need to spend more time and work on, what's earning us money, or indeed what contracts are costing us money. So thank you very much for your time. We've come to half an hour, so I'm going to leave it there. Please do have a look at our website, easysoftware.co.uk. On there we have a resources page. If you haven't accessed any of this information yet, do have a look. There are some great ebooks and white papers on there, which if you're building a business case could be of use to you. But otherwise, just please look, as they are good resources to use. Otherwise, I'll leave it there and say thank you very much for your time and attention today. If it can be of any help and you'd like to set up a more in-depth demonstration at a convenient time, then please do contact me, george.hadaway@easysoftware.co.uk. We will be sending an email afterwards to thank you for your attendance, providing you with a recording so you can share with other colleagues if you so wish. So thank you again. I hope it was useful, and have a good day.